Man actually claimed to the female lawyer in front of him that he had suffered from gender discrimination. Not long ago, he hired a caretaker to take care of his mother. According to current US tax law, the money spent on hiring a caretaker can be deducted from taxes. But when he applied for the deduction, he was rejected by the IRS. The reason was that the tax deduction for caretaking applies to all women, but for men, their wives must be disabled or deceased, or they must be divorced. It seems that gender discrimination doesn't only affect women. Listening to the man's story, Ruth immediately decided to take the case. When she was teaching at the university, she added a special course on gender discrimination in law. She and her students discovered that gender discrimination had permeated every aspect of life. For example, women could be fired for being pregnant. They had to apply for credit cards in their husband's name, and their social security status was far inferior to that of men. Although the younger generation of women had already become aware of these issues and would protest gender discrimination by marching in the streets, Ruth knew that such actions would have little effect. Only by changing the law could the situation change. In the past, cases of gender discrimination against women had all ended in failure without exception, but this time she saw hope. Because the person suffering from gender discrimination was a man, Ruth wanted to use this case to prove that gender discrimination, whether against men or women, was contrary to the constitutional principle of equality for all. In order to overturn the traditional legal system and achieve true gender equality. But this was undoubtedly a huge challenge, because it was her first time handling a lawsuit. So, she took her daughter to visit a senior female lawyer. Unexpectedly, the lawyer they met was very cold. She had spent her entire life fighting for women's rights and civil rights, but had lost miserably. Naturally, she had become thoroughly disillusioned with society's unchangeable status quo.
Why, you think you can change the country? You should look to her generation. They're taking to the streets, demanding change, like we did when we fought for the vote.
But changing the culture means nothing if the law doesn't change. As a lawyer, you must believe that.
What did you say your name was?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well, sorry, Professor Ginsburg. Maybe someday, but the country isn't ready. Change minds first, then change the law.
Ruth had originally gone to seek advice, but instead, she was severely discouraged. Her gloomy mood matched the torrential rain. Mother and daughter prepared to hail a cab to go home. The rain soaked their skirts. A few men nearby saw this and whistled lewdly.
Hey, we'll keep you warm if you're getting wet.
Oh yeah, real nice! You kissed your mother with that mouth, asshole? Mom, you can't let boys talk to you like that.
Seeing her daughter boldly and fearlessly respond, Ruth suddenly had a moment of clarity. If this had been 20 years ago, no woman would have dared to speak to a man like that. But times had changed. Women were becoming more independent and confident. Cultural change would also drive legal change. She shouldn't focus on the past, but should look toward the future. Ruth changed the direction of her lawsuit. Previously, she had only wanted to overturn a law that discriminated against women. But now, she was focusing on changing the law itself. It was not just about pursuing equality for all, but also about securing happiness for the next generation. However, the lawsuit was far more difficult than she had imagined.